Hi everybody, welcome back to the studio. Thank you for all the comments on last week's episode of The Young Master. I'm glad you enjoyed seeing that realigning process. And thank you for all those that have submitted responses to family trees for Gilbert Baldry, sent details and information about his dress and his clothing style. Hopefully we'll get a little bit further on with him today. I'm planning on cleaning that yellowed varnish off. So we'll be looking at removing that discoloured varnish from his limbs and his hands and see what's going on there. But also we need to tackle the background as well and get to his face as well. So yeah, I think it should be a nice cleaning episode today. I've got lots of information about the canvas manufacturer, breeching ceremonies and all sorts of information. So yeah, let's get started. So the first thing I'm doing today is I'm going to use a conservation soap, and I'm just going to remove any residue or dirt that may be left on the canvas. We did remove the lining paper last week, and this will have cleaned a lot of that off, but I'm just going over the top just to make sure there is no glue residue or anything left over. I've had plenty of people get in touch with the information about his costume and the pose. So basically what we've got here is a little boy, probably the eldest child of a wealthy family, around 4 years old, maybe coming up to 5. He's wearing what was called a boy's gown in what looks to be made from red pan velvet. This is a lightweight but rich velvet made from silk. The sleeves are called dropped mutton leg sleeves, and which were a fashion for women around 1828 to 29, but dresses of both little girls and early infant boys would also have had this style of sleeve. The lace collar looks to have been made from a fine handmade Brussels lace, which itself was a luxury item and would have had to be imported in like the velvet from the continent. A red gown like this would have been dyed in a cochineal, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, which is made from crushed beetles. The pan velvet was made exclusively at this time in either Venice or Italy, or perhaps Lyon in France. And the gown and the subsequent painting would have been a major purchase for what would have been an influential and prosperous family, especially as the child would have grown so quickly out of it. Boys wearing gowns like this was a bit of a throwback to medieval times, and was thought better for the child not to constrict the growth of his legs and enable the child to learn to walk more easily. So that's what I've got a little bit about the costume. Quite a few people got in touch with me about the breeching ceremony. So not long after his 5th birthday, he would have been given his first pair of trousers in an informal but fairly old ceremony called breeching. This would have happened on and around his 5th birthday. The boy would be presented to a large gathering of immediate and extended family by his father or older male relative, wearing his first set of trousers. This wasn't just confined to the upper classes, but was a common ceremony across the classes, where a boy, being an infant, was on his way into manhood. Gowns like this were hardly ever passed down to siblings unless the firstborn passed away, and then the second son would have this. But usually never ever had a portrait painted to go with it. Apparently hardly any exist of the second son, which is quite sad really. So that's some of the information that I've been given about his costume. As you can see from my cleaning swabs here, there isn't an awful lot of dirt coming off this portrait now. So when I took the facing paper off, the Japanese mulberry paper, that will have cleaned some of the surface dirt and grime off there as well. So I'm just going to go over the rest of this canvas, make sure it's nice and clean, and then we'll start to look at using the solvent to bite through that varnish layer. And what I'm expecting is lots and lots of overpaint too. But before we get to that varnish removal, I've got a very quick public service announcement for you guys. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes from industry experts across film, illustration, design, photography, and so much more. One of the classes I've been looking at is a video editing class. So this was by Jordi van der Put, and within 5 minutes I'd already learned a lot of stuff that I didn't already know. Another great class I've been on is an interior design one. You know, I'm quite proud of my cabinet and I've wanted to update my space. And this class had loads of good tips and ideas and just good knowledge about how to make your space more creative. So that was a really good one. If there's something you're looking to improve upon over summer, any hobbies or passions or skills, Skillshare has a wealth of classes that would be suitable for you, and I recommend it. I think it's great. It's a great resource and it's for creative people like you and me. The first 500 people to click on the link below will receive 1 month free trial of Skillshare, so why not join the community? If you did 1 hour a day, that's over 30 hours of creative classes available to you. I think it's great. I can't recommend it enough. So thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and yeah, let's get back to cleaning the young master. So when the portrait came in, at first I did my test cleans to see that the varnish would remove, and there on his sock you can see the little test window. So now I'm using my solvent mixture and I'm going to start tackling this yellowed varnish and see what removes. You can see straight away on my swab there that it is quite yellowed, and there's also going to be lashings of overpaint on this picture. We know the damage is bad, we know that it has been over cleaned or skinned in the past, so this is just going to be tentatively now looking at what's original paint, what's been added afterwards, and yeah, just continually checking that swab to see what comes off. So the difference there is quite startling. We've got looks like a little buckle or strap on the shoe there, and then we can see that there is quite a lot of overpaint on this this sock. It's very, very yellowed. You can see a bit of damage to the left of his sock there as well, so that's all going to be overpaint, but I'm confident in parts that there will be still lots of the original painting intact. Well, I'm hoping there is anyway. Hopefully, if this was our Mr. Williamson, he did, I don't know, maybe he stops after a while and just realised the mistake that he'd made and left some sections untouched, but we'll see as we go along and find out what kind of state the whole portrait is in. In terms of the pose, so children, especially firstborn sons, have always been painted up to the latter part of the 18th century, and even very young children were dressed exactly like adults in cut-down adult fashions, even suits of armour. Around the 1780s, artists like Joshua Reynolds and Thomas Gainsborough began portraying children in more informal ways, which included extending to their costumes, which were much simpler fashions of the time. Boys and girls who were toddlers were readily shown in the traditional infant gowns, which had not been the fashion before. In the Regency era that followed, Sir Thomas Lawrence became one of the most famous artists to specialise in children's portraiture, setting the rules for how children should be dressed and posed. And in past episodes you've seen examples such as the Red Boy, which became very fashionable. He set the fashion for the portraits of eldest boys to be painted in an outdoor setting, often the grounds of the estate that the boy would one day inherit. Wearing red velvet, a cloth he excelled in painting. His other trademarks was to make the portrait even more informal. He would often show his subject sitting with one leg crossed under him and a posy or a line of wild flowers in front of the subject, much like our young master here. So we can see those wild flowers near his knee. I think that's a little beetle that's just nestling there as well. So whoever this artist is, they've took that pose as their own as well. Lawrence confessed this was like an allegorical touch which symbolised the fleeting nature of a carefree childhood. So I'm just going to have a look at that paint surface there. You can see there was lots of yellowed varnish and overpaint come off. We've got the grey underpainting there on the left hand side, and I think in the top right corner that is original tones of paint that has not been damaged. And again here we've got grey tonal underpaint on the left hand side, and in the top right corner what appears to be the original paint as well. And then this is the sock area, so the peaks of that white paint have been severely rubbed down, and I think those highlights there, those yellowed highlights, are a little bit of original. And here again, more original tones left, but the grey underpaint is certainly showing through quite a lot. So let's just start having a look at this background area now. So yeah, what Lawrence was trying to capture was the carefree, fleeting nature of childhood, which, like the beautiful wild flowers, would soon wither away. The wild blooms, the outdoor setting, the red velvet, and the leg tucked under the young sitter would all become a stock series of recognisable and very fashionable memes, copied and reinterpreted by many of the artists in London. So you can see here I've got just brown varnish coming off, and then little bits of overpaint as well, where some of that damage has been covered. Okay, as you can see, there's a lot going on with this picture. We've got varnish layer that's coming off like a golden yellow, which I would expect. And then we have got overpainted sections on the flesh and in the background that's removing as well. And then when you look under magnification, you can see that grey kind of ground layer that we've got in his face as well. So it's not just his face that's been over-cleaned in the past, it's other elements of his body as well. So I'm going to weaken this solution now by about, I don't know, 30%, so it's still effective. It'll make the cleaning a little bit slower, but I'll be able to address then any areas that are overpaint without any kind of surprises. If the mixture is too strong and it's just waltzing off, then that's no good. I need to be able to assess that that is overpaint that is coming off. But that does seem to be the case with him. So yeah, we're going to tread carefully and lightly and continue. He looks so sad on the bench, but we're going to do our best for him. Right, let's carry on. So this is my weaker solution now. It will still attack that varnish layer, and it will also look at removing overpaint as well. So you can see we've got a horizontal tear here on his thigh, and when you see the swab, you can see that overpaint just waltzing off there a little bit. Now it is coming off there. The original white underpaint seems to be intact. But yeah, the swab is just taking off that overpaint from the damage. And it seems to be consistent in colour as well, so you can see that just removing nicely there. Those yellowed highlights are quite stubborn. Now I'm presuming that that's overpaint as well. So I'll see how the rest of those white garments fare during the clean, and then I can assess whether that has been added afterwards as well. It does look a little bit jarring against the white of his undergarments. And now onto his hand. So this has got lots of stuff going on there. It's very brown, bits of varnish. Look at that. So there's like remnants of the old varnish there. There's little bits of overpaint as well. Some pinky pigments coming off there. But actually, when you look at his fingers and the highlights on the fingernails, the hand is actually quite nicely done. So again, we'll just have to see how much is damage and how much is original. There's some reddy tones on there that are either little bits of overpaint. Yeah, they seem to be removing as well. It's a real mixture. And then this is the thing with a painting that's this old and has had various works and attempts done to it. It's just a bit of a puzzle, really. This isn't the same kind of restoration process as just cleaning a painting that's been in good condition all its life and it's just having the varnish removed for its first or second time. This poor little chap here has been through the mill and is pretty battered. So it's almost like an archaeological dig where you're using your swab and your solvents to remove layers with the aim, well, my aim is to get back as close to the artist's original intention. And sometimes that's not possible, but sometimes you do get down. That's looking a lot better now. There are elements of the background around there that's a little bit lost. Now this one is a bit of a mystery. This has had, you can see a bit of square of a varnish layer there that still seems a bit opaque. And I'm not sure what's happening with those fingers, so we will see what reveals here. We have got yellowed varnish, and then we've got pinky red overpaint as well coming from that garment. So I'm guessing the whole garment has had layers of paint added on after that original clean. I'm not sure if that's overpaint. I don't know what's happening at the end of his fingers there, if that's supposed to be his fingers or not. I'm not 100% sure. But again, there's like glazes over his hand. So you can see that's my same mixture as on the previous hand, and it's just removing pinky red overpaint. There's a little bit on that garment that's touched off as well there. We can see a vertical tear running through his hand. So I think that garment's been overpainted there as well. You can see like granular residue of canvas coming through. I'll just zoom in on there for you. High tech. Sorry to do that to you. So yeah, you can see here the original canvas weave protruding through that red section, and then that will have been just glazed over just to hide those bits that have been overcleaned in the past. And there's still bits of dirt and original varnish left in the crevices as well. So I think this painting must have been very dirty before whoever did the initial clean got to it. Let's see what this is. I thought this was badly painted fingernails at first, but as it cleans, it almost looks like it's holding something. It reminds me of wings of a moth or of an insect or a butterfly maybe. So what I initially thought was the child's fingernails, this seems to be revealing to be, I think, some kind of insect. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think it is. The thing that disturbs me is that brown circular blob. I'm not sure 100% what that is, if that could be part of an insect or part of something he's holding, a flower maybe. But that pattern does definitely remind me of some kind of insect. But again, there's swathes of overpaint all over this section here to cover that damage, I imagine, and just cover the original clean that obviously was a little bit too strong. Here's a bit of a closer look, so you can see that tear. You can see his fingers coming together, but I'm not sure what that brown circular blob is really. I'm not 100% convinced. That's not an insect's head, but they certainly do look like wings. It's just a shame that there is so much paint missing once you take off the overpaint that's been added. It seems that during the end of the 19th century there was a number of DIY magazines beginning to appear around the end of that century that encouraged people to do all sorts of dubious stuff like build their own house, smoking their own meat, installing an electrical supply to the house, constructing pleasure boats, and even building the newfangled automobiles, all gleaned in weekly instalments. So maybe it was advice from one such art magazine that prompted the Mr. Williamsons of the world to become art restorers. Whoever was to blame for this, it seemed that within a few years, much of the touching up paintwork began to bleach and flake off and discolour, turn darker. So depending on what pigments is used and what they were suspended in, that's led to part of the condition that this picture is now in. That is definitely a little beetle there that's next to him, and they look like a couple of daisies, maybe a buttercup. That left hand is really nicely done, so I think that is salvageable. But yeah, that little beetle's quite nice. I'm not sure what the red is there though, that could be something else, another kind of flower. But the way this background has been tackled You can see here just in the bottom corner, that's another big tear that's been massively overpainted. You can see through the layers of dirt and varnish. It's really fluid. So whoever look at that overpaint there. That's just to cover that tear there. Whoever painted this painting was a good artist. They knew what they were doing, and you can tell this sometimes the way certain things have been tackled, and especially in this background area, this kind of where the foliage is, you can see the quality. So this is the bottom left corner of the portrait now, and this is some of the foliage I was telling you about. So it's very nicely tackled. That looks to me like some kind of dandelion leaf, or one of those leaves that are like dandelion leaves that are a bit spiky. Someone will know these. Is it some kind of wort? Someone will know. But the tones that they've used in this and the way they've rendered that section, I know it's not the clearest. There's that damage I was telling you about. So this was one of the horrible patches on the back that took a while to remove. The foliage is realist. You know, it's not made up. These are actual real plants that the artist has studied. I'm also looking for a signature in this area too. So this would be somewhere where an artist might leave his moniker. So I'm looking for clues and hoping that something shows up here. Always treading carefully around this section. There's quite a lot of overpaint there, but it's such a nice treat to reveal that foliage coming through. There's a couple of more little buttercups there as well. Doesn't appear to be any signature in this section though. And then those lighter green leaves at the bottom look like clover. The greens are the soft pigments as well, so this weakened mixture now, I can be confident that I'm just removing the discoloured varnish and any overpaint that's on there that is still present. But yeah, browns and greens compared to the whites are a lot more softer and easier to remove if you are not careful. But yeah, look at that, beautiful. There's real depth to it. We've got another little bit of a plant down there. Right, so these are my swabs. This is the soap swabs, the first cleaning. So there was some residue and dirt on there, but not too much. These are my next ones where it's more of the discoloured varnish with some elements of overpainting there off his socks and those areas. This is some of the overpaint that's removed from his hands and also elements of the gown as well. And then these are the swabs from the foliage on the bottom left corner where that damage was. So you can see there that the overpaint is quite thick and very, very dark. So it's always handy to keep the swabs. This was another one that had half varnish and half overpaint. So it's always handy for me to keep these as I'm cleaning, just as a reference point of what I am looking for when I'm doing my cleans. So again, here we've got damage. So that's a mixture of varnish and overpaint. You can see that removing. But yeah, some nice elements here. Less detail in this section. This is probably more of a rock or something. Again, the bottom right corner, you'd think there might be a signature present as well, so I'm always on the lookout to see if there's any initials or a monogram or something. Unfortunately not here though, this just seems to be damage and overpaint. So in the background, I'm interested to see again how much is varnish. This seems to be varnish for the most part, and how much is overpaint and varnish mixed with overpaint. There you go, there's a little bit coming off now. There is damage to the background that we know of. Elements have been patched and touched in. I'm not expecting this to go blue or cerulean blue or anything bright. I just want to establish if this is like a dark kind of evening brooding sky, or whether there is again glazes of overpaint on there. And from you can see how it's grabbing the cotton there. And this usually is that when you've got a slightly weaker solution, it doesn't dissolve the varnish and paint quite quick enough, so it grabs your cotton swab. So already this is telling me, again, we've got a mixture of varnish and retouching and possible glazes over that background, but you can see it's quite thick and heavy going there, look. So a lot of this cleaning is by feel as well, and that's dragging, so I might need to increase the strength of my mixture, but I'm also aware that we have got over cleaned areas in the background too. There's a part on his right hand side of his face which has already been cleaned and over cleaned, and this is what I'm kind of finding on the left hand side too. So it looks like no part of this portrait was saved by an overzealous artist or restorer in the past. Whether it's our Mr. Williamson or not, I don't know, but obviously someone has had a go at this, and then yeah, you can see there's just swathes of brown pigment coming off there as well, which is a real shame. I was hoping the background was going to be a little bit more yeah, it's dragging, we're a little bit more intact, but unfortunately not. And there you can see the thickness, the residue of the varnish there as well. So well, we'll see what is left underneath the varnish as we continue. While I'm on this section of the painting, I'm going to use the same solvent mixture and just see what's happening with the gown. So again, initially that first bite of varnish removes, and then I'm expecting red pigment to appear on here as well. So you can see it's getting a bit more of a browny red colour. So some artists will have freshened up a portrait, as they used to say, so they may well have part cleaned this painting, seen the paint coming off, tried to balance it out, and then added new paint over the top. When I first saw this painting, the elements of quality in there, like the lace around his neck area, but I didn't really rate the gown. But I can see here now, as this overpaint is removing, that the gown and the highlights, there's actually quite a bit of volume in this painting that has been covered up. So you start to see the artist's, the original artist's intention rather than whoever freshened it up. But you can see, so this is just me adding a little bit of white spirit to neutralise that clean, but you can see that underneath that there is areas that have been massively over cleaned in the past. So I'm just looking at this lace area now, so there is a yellowed varnish to this section, and invariably in these parts of a painting where the white's been added really thick to give texture and body to and detail to something, you will see a difference in the clean there. So that lace area's come up nice, and you can see the red gown coming through there. Any of you that saw the Patreon exclusive I did on Charles Lidderdale, that again was an artist's kind of ploy to show how good they were. They'd have layers of garmentry and lace over objects that the sitter was wearing, just to show how good they were at showing those subtle differences in tone. And again, this is a quality bit of painting where that lace is overlaid on the red gown, again reinforcing my view that whoever painted this was an established and good painter. But yeah, I can see a little bit more of the gown coming through now, and areas that have been covered with thick red highlights are now revealing. Like in that collar, the red collar on his shoulder, there's a little bit more detail there revealing, whereas before it was just kind of covered. So yeah, I've been cleaning him for a while now, and as you can see, there's loads of overpaint on there and it is removing. But I find it quite sad now, because when you remove that overpaint off there, the amateur overpaint, you get to see the quality of the original painting underneath. So all that foliage is beautifully painted, the real flowers, the real leaves, probably dandelions or something. They look really well done. And you look at the young master's gown, and when you start taking off the thick overpaint, you get to see some hints or remnants of the original brush strokes, and it's quite delicately painted. The lace work, the little collar, but you see the ridges of the original canvas where it's been overcleaned and skinned. And yeah, it's kind of bittersweet, because you're getting down to the original painting, but then you're realizing that it is so damaged, so massively damaged. And we knew that, and I know that, and I know it's never going to be 100%, but you start to see the quality of what could have been. Like, his hands look so much better now. I think he's holding, I don't know, is that a moth or something? But there was quality here at one point, and that's been lost. So we're going to have to do our best for him. But yeah, I feel quite sad cleaning him at the moment, because I can see what would have been or could have been. But yeah, that's where we're up to with him at the moment. So I'm going to carry on cleaning his gown now, see what else reveals, and then we'll have another look at the background. Okay guys, let's carry on. As I've been cleaning the gown, I've realised that it is quite well painted in parts. There's lots of volume to the fabric, especially in this bit that's draped over this rock. One of the first things I learned to do as an artist was paint fabric and drapery. I was copying reproduction paintings of Tamara de Lempicka, and I had to reproduce some with different fabric hangings. So I had a model that I could drape fabric over and copy from. So it is a real skill to be able to do that and make that fabric believable. So if you think of a portrait, a hell of a lot of it is fabric rather than the actual flesh, and it was rare to get an artist who could do both well. Right, onto his face. I know you've all been waiting for this. It's going to be over very quickly. So this is my solution. You can see there those big broad strokes of overpaint on his left cheek have just disappeared, and you can see how roughly they were applied on the right hand side of his face. So these may well have been in keeping with the boy's face when they were done, and darkened over time, but just something tells me about them brush strokes is that maybe it's been like this for a long time and it wasn't the best restoration work when it was done. What is nice though is that I have got quite a bit of underpaint still present. So here's a photograph. You can see that there are areas where it is worn, but there is still quite a bit of body paint underneath. I'm not going straight down to canvas, which is encouraging. Again, here you go. You can see that cheek paint just disappear. And those highlights on his cheek now are more present, and he's looking a little bit more modelled. There's a lot to think about with this face when it comes to how we restore it and put it back, or what we do with him. But he looks so much better just to have those rough strokes removed. And it's nice to see that there is still some thick paint underneath. Now, this is probably just tonal underpaint, maybe the first sketch of the boy, painted by the original artist, the master. He will have taken this canvas down and the boy will have sat for him. But yeah, it's nice to see him looking a little bit more resolute now, a little bit more solid. Those eyes are still intact, which is good. Those beautiful blue eyes. And he's got a little highlight on his nose and a bit of shadow. And on my swab, it's consistent. The colour's consistent that's coming off as the overpaint. The hair you can see on his left hand side has been really badly overcleaned. And then underneath his neck, you can see that yellow ochre kind of peachy tone removing as well. So there's swathes of that colour to remove. But closer up, you can see how pale he is and how little is actually left. We've got enough to work on or work from. Those pale yellow areas on his cheek are still kind of almost a ground layer, which is a shame, but you can still see enough of his face to get an idea of what he would have looked like before he was attacked. I think that's the only word I can describe now. He is sweet though, and he does deserve saving to some degree. I'm just looking at his hair as well now, so you can see on his left hand side that has been massively overcleaned, but there are some really nice little highlights in his fringe area and at the top of his head as well. There is still overpaint on there, but it'd be nice to try and capture some of that detail or save some of that. So this is where I'm leaving it at the moment. We have took off lots and lots of my most used word today, overpaint. We've got bits of original canvas coming through. We've discovered what could well be a moth or a bit of a flower. We've got this beautiful section down here. Can't see it so well at the moment, but that was really nicely painted. We've got these wild flowers and that beetle. We've still got the bits of damage and rips and tears to address, but I feel like we have got back to almost a kind of ground zero now of the portrait, and now we just have multiple decisions to make. Right, so that's the overpaint cleaned off his face. I'm pleased with how he looks there. I thought there'd be less underpaint left, but we do have quite a lot of shadow tones in there as well, so you can see how his face is modelled. It is very, very pale though, but he looks just so much better without those dauby markings on his cheek, so it's nice to get those off as well. I've cleaned most of the background as well now, and that is as it is. I think there's parts that have been over cleaned and then it looks like they may have stopped, and then just put some washes over the top to kind of tidy those up as well. So yeah, he's looking pretty good. There's a lot of work to do in terms of retouching his face. I need to have a decision what I'm going to do with that. Maybe once we get the barrier varnish on there, we can see exactly what we're dealing with. So yeah, I might be looking at retouching that all in, or maybe just doing little consolidation areas just to kind of bring some pigment back into his face as well. So yeah, decisions to be had there. His hair needs some work as well, so I need to tackle his hair. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with how he's turned out today. He looks good. It still looks a bit sad. Hopefully by the end of it, he'll look more his usual self. Okay. So I think we will leave that there for today. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I hope you enjoyed the cleaning. He is looking much improved now. Still a lot of work to do. So next time you see him, we'll probably have him stretched up again and ready to do some retouching. Thank you to all my new subscribers. Welcome to the channel. I hope you're enjoying what you see. And for those of you who don't know, I have a Patreon as well. So hello Patreon supporters. Thank you for making this video possible. And yeah, if you do want to head over to Patreon and see what else I've got going on there at the moment, then please feel free to head over there. I've got some new merch landing soon as well, so I will keep you posted on that. Other than that, where's the weather report today? How am I doing this? Here, weather report, Manchester, July, grey, not raining yet. So that's where we're up to with that. So yeah, thanks as ever for watching, guys. Thanks for your support, and I will catch you on the next one. Okay, have a nice weekend. Take it easy. Bye.